There we are. Okay, time for our weekly legislative update. Still a lot of bills out there, so take it away, Josh.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and nice to see everyone. So Friday was the first cutoff where bills had to get out of policy committees in order to be considered for further action. This coming Friday will be the cutoff to get bills out of fiscal committees for those that have a fiscal impact or were referred to fiscal committees. So the Appropriations Committee met yesterday, not yesterday, Saturday, for several hours hearing bills, and they're pretty much working nonstop for the next week. We're still honestly, it still sort of feels like they haven't completely come to terms with the budget situation between the bills that they're wanting to pass and when they talk about the lack of revenues. So this could actually be a very interesting week if bills really stop moving forward because of those fiscal impacts. You had couple things here. You had asked last week to talk about House Bill 1044, which I looked over at my TV. They just finished, as I said, the hearing in the Finance Committee on 1044. So, and I know we don't have a quorum anyway this morning, but that is the Representative Wiley's bill that would have allowed or allows an increase for the auditors and treasurers in their functions in collecting real estate excise tax. So we can talk about it now. It's got to see whether or not the bill even gets out of committee this week. So we could wait and see if you want to have a more detailed conversation later, see if it's still going forward even.
So that's one that we hadn't taken an official position on yet, but the treasurer has another bill that we are supporting, as I understand. Okay.
That one didn't move forward, right, Josh? That was 1042.
I believe it did not. It's still, I'm sorry, it's still in the Finance Committee. It has been heard. It has not been scheduled for executive action. So given the opposition that there were from other taxing districts, I'd be really surprised if it does move forward, but it is still eligible for action. I'm going to move on unless you stop me.
Nope, that's good.
The other bill that we want to talk about with you is there's legislation that will be heard this afternoon in the House for the first time that allows the Department of Transportation to bond tolling revenue for replacement of the I-5 bridge. And the Senate version, I believe, is going to be heard later this week, but the House version is being heard this afternoon. I recognize this is probably a pretty significant conversation within the community for you. I will say, and I know Colleen provided some great information and context this last week about how the toll revenue for the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was bonded to make that project work. This is not an unusual financing strategy for the state on large projects like this. But I know it's controversial. I think you haven't had a chance probably to look at the report, but I did say that on the House version, Representative Wiley is one of the co-sponsors of this. And in the Senate, I think all three of our Senate members are co-sponsors of that legislation. So our delegation is behind it. I did just see that Representative Lee was in the paper over the weekend speaking in opposition to this. So it's not like the Clark County delegation is unified on this, which I'm sure is not a surprise to you. So I know Senator Cleveland specifically asked if we would weigh in and support it. I know we don't have quorum today, so not sure if you want to give me any guidance in terms of how how to proceed with this.
Yeah. I would be supportive. Tolling has been all along a significant part of the funding strategy. I think not to support tolling, even though nobody likes tolling, is to really undermine the replacement bridge itself. So that's the context that I put it in.
And just to be clear, the bill itself
Is
is
this
washed
the
up
bonding
just the
authority?
bonding authority.
Right.
It is not, I mean, it assumes that there's going to be tolling because you don't need the authority to bond the revenue if you don't toll. But it is not itself the actual action.
So we're technically not directly supporting tolling, but if there is tolling, then it would be good as a financing strategy to be able to bond.
Right.
And I just sent that Tacoma Narrows Bridge information to the rest of you. I believe Councillor Young was the only one on that email.
Got it.
Okay, Councillor Young, do you have some thoughts?
Quick question, real quick. I'm curious because I remember in the past it was going to be Oregon taking the lead on tolling. So that shifted at some point.
Actually, be both sides tolling. So you'll be told in what the direction to Oregon and the direction back to Washington.
Okay. I don't have any reason per se to object it against him based on what I know. I mean, if we're going to toll, there has to be the mechanism for it. And from my understanding, this is what creates that mechanism. And the reality is that if we do replace that bridge, there's, at least with the current project that we have, there's no way to do it without tolling. So I probably would lean in support, but we don't have a quorum either at this time. So we'll have to either look at it on Wednesday during policy updates or next week.
Yeah, Wednesday could be an option.
Yeah, I can bring
And
that
for a little
forward.
additional background as well, our piece of legislation says that none of the funding can go towards the administration or facilities for Oregon's portion of oversight for their tolling authority or infrastructure to build their tolling infrastructure.
So is the tolling going to be 50-50 then? Is that what?
Yes, that's what is essentially we would be splitting, or I believe just the proceeds from, whichever direction. Not that I think people are really necessarily going one way and not coming back across.
I
And
think
then
they are
who,
going one way, and it's to Clark County.
who makes the final determination when the tolling will end, if ever?
So I can speak to the Narrows Bridge because I used to live on that side of the bridge, and so I know quite a bit about it. Is that essentially the toll remains in place for as long as that bond is paid off. But at least for the Narrows Bridge portion, they anticipate continuing to toll likely at some level indefinitely because there is just improvements for the older span of the bridge that they anticipate having to pay for through tolling. But theoretically, the tolling should end once the bond is paid off.
It is the Transportation Commission that makes decisions about tolling.
Yeah, I understand a lot of the apprehension in the community on this issue. There's, it's tough, and I think people have seen time and time again where promises were made about something ending at a certain time, and then it comes up and, well, it just continues. So I do understand that level of concern, but at the same time, from my understanding, there's no other route besides doing this, for the current project as it is. And although I've said in the past that it's by far a perfect project, it is probably the only project that we will get. And we certainly won't ever get a third crossing ever until this project is complete. And so, that's in our long-term visioning, is the third bridge, and we've got to get to that point where that discussion can be taken seriously, but it just won't until this bridge is replaced.
For a little bit extra information, the reason that the Tacoma Narrows Bridge the timeline got expanded out so much further than was originally anticipated was that they ended up delaying toll increases for about 10 years, where it was supposed to go up to $5, and then eventually it was supposed to go up to $10 per trip across. And the legislature voted to extend that timeline out and keep the tolls at a lower rate. And then during COVID, crossings just pretty much stopped. And so that really ended up inflating the cost quite significantly.
As I understand, one of the impacts was with the tolling on the Narrows was an economic boom to Gig Harbor because people wanted to avoid paying that toll. So it was economic benefit there. So
My
similar
mom still
things
lives
could
there, and
happen.
I begrudgingly when we have to cross the bridge.
Right. That's an impact of tolling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if so the Senate bill is going to be heard tomorrow afternoon. And that is the version that Senator Cleveland was talking specifically about. Is it possible that we could get a full council position before noon tomorrow?
I don't think so, because I don't think we have an opportunity to get the whole council together.
The only, and I would have to check, there is planning commission interviews tomorrow at 10 with the entire council, but I don't know because it hasn't been posted it's posted specifically for the interviews, not a generic thing.
This underscores the importance of attending meetings.
Well,
Yep.
we have one that's in the office, but is on a different call.
Could we possibly do later this evening by chance?
No. We can't,
We'd have to
because we have to
notice.
do a 24-hour
Oh,
notice
no.
for any special meeting for council to come together.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if we could just knock on his door and
We
see
did,
if he-
and
Oh,
he
we
said
did.
he's on another work call that he cannot
Okay.
get off of.
Okay.
well,
Sorry.
All right.
I'll let Senator Cleveland know that we didn't have a majority this morning, and just some of the comments that you've made about this.
Yeah.
Understand these things happen.
It's too bad.
I don't know. There weren't any bills that I think we were really excited about one way or another that died at the last cutoff. I'm not sure if you councilors would have received email from Thurston County about from Chair Mejia about the county auditor responsibility bill 5154. That one was quite controversial and did end up dying, so that was a good thing from our perspective. So other than that, it's really kind of the ones that had major impact.
I do have a question. Did I see that? So 1592, the bill that would have the state assume 50% of current indigent defense costs and 100% of any new requirements. Did I see that had a fiscal note of almost $1 billion?
5 years.
I did not look at the fiscal note myself, and I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think that.
Colleen put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah. That took my breath away too. And it made me wonder, well, if the state isn't picking up that share, are the counties picking up that share? I think yes.
As currently constructed, that's been our concern the whole time here, that you're going to triple everyone's costs. And yeah, looking at that fiscal note is like, oh, okay, if that's thinking about the new standards and what things might cost looking forward across the state.
And that's just the state's share. If that's 50%.
50% of current and then 100% of new. So I guess
Oh.
depending on how the new costs are calculated over the next 5 years. But still, I mean, our portion of that is likely to be significant. I mean, when we did our costing exercise, it was looking in the 20 something million dollars increase.
Yeah,
It's
just for
huge. And
us.
that was really what the debate centered on when they were debating the amendment about including cities into that cost. About whether they could sustain that additional amount, but
We would
they really,
prioritize
like, you
counties.
agree, it's their obligation.
You know, I don't know the bill number, but there's an article in the Columbian this past week about the GOP's affordable housing bills, and one of them I think was Braun's bill, that it was tenant protections, $400 a month. I was just startled to see that coming from his office for if you're 80% of or less of AMI. Is that still in the works?
Let me do a little search here. I think I
I
know.
believe it is still alive. Let me send you, there's actually a pretty good podcast from the House and Senate Republicans called The Elephant in the Dome that I listened to, and it covers this issue.
Okay,
What
good.
exactly was it? I didn't see that.
Well, it was they have a package of bills, and I think it was their response to the rent control. And so the one that I especially liked was payments of $400 or less to tenants who make less than 80% of the median income for the area they live. And so as a upstream preventative measure to homelessness and eviction, this would be just the ticket, I think.
Where would the funding come from?
Yeah, that's a question. I don't know. That's always the question. But you know, if you look at like the cost of like shelter, for example, if we can transition more to preventative measures, that would be much less expensive than,
Yes.
you know, staffing 24 hours for shelter.
You know what?
Not
The
that we
sad,
don't need
sad-
shelter. We need shelter. I'm not arguing that at all.
yeah. No, the sad reality is that nobody gets reelected by prevention. You know, that's the sad reality, is that politicians don't do what's right often because it won't necessarily look good for or work for a reelection campaign.
We don't
It's
have to
tough.
be like that.
No, we don't. I agree 100%.
So he has, I don't think this is it, but Senator Braun has an eviction reform bill, which is 5740. But that's the only, or is that the only one? I think that's the only one I see that could be.
Well, it may not be specifically his bill,
Oh.
but it's part of the package, the GOP package that I was just curious about. And if there's a way to support something that Braun is interested in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, that 5740 is not moving forward anyway. So
Okay.
I remember the article that you're talking about, though.
Yeah, I think I clipped it, but I just clipped the second page, so I don't know if the first page had the bill numbers.
Yeah, Terry, you'd sent this to me on Friday as well. I hadn't had a chance to read through it yet. But it looks like the money for the program would come from the document recording fee, which we already know is in a little bit of a challenging state at the moment. And it looks like it's House Bill 1099 and has a companion in the Senate that is 5731.
Right, right. So 5731 is not, it died in the housing committee, and 1099 did also.
Okay. It's hard to find the sources of money without competing with other people who are receiving that source of funding. So there's the rub.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But as an idea, I thought it was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Representative Lowe is working on several of these for the Association of Counties. And they're sort of blended into their priorities as well, a little bit. There's some overlap, maybe that's the way to say it.
Okay, that's
Yeah, do you have any other questions?
no, I really hadn't had a chance to go through everything that was still alive. But we can do that this week. And then I guess the Wednesday would be an opportunity when the council meets to see if there's a third vote that could support that bonding.
You know, that I'm assuming one or both of those versions of that bonding bill will move forward. Since they're both being heard this week, there's no like critical timeline. So if you want to take a little bit extra time and make sure you understand it, if you need, if you have people you need to talk to, whatever, we could come back and revisit that next week or even maybe the week after.
I guess it would be, since Wiley had asked for our position on that or our support, that I think if we could do it sooner than later would be good.
I have no problem bringing that up on Wednesday for council during policy items.
Okay, and maybe if you could just give people a heads up that we'll be discussing this particular bill, then they can have a chance to read it. That'd be
And
great.
since we know it's coming, it wouldn't be a bad thing just to throw it on the agenda as well so the public can see.
We've already posted the agenda.
Oh,
Oh.
gotcha.
It had to be posted last week, so we can always amend and add it during that meeting.
Okay.
Okay, we are still scheduled to meet next week. Is it a holiday? One of our other clients canceled on us, so it must be a holiday. No?
I don't think so.
It's NACO. Is it NACO? Never mind. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay,
We'll
Good.
be here. The only other thing I just wanted to bring up, I know we don't have a quorum, but one thing that came to my attention last week that's sort of relevant to some other conversations the county's having is 5659, which I believe is still in fiscal committee, but would update the mental health sales tax to allow explicitly for use on new capital projects. And so I just would add that to our list to keep an eye on, or maybe that died, but
That's not the right bill number.
okay.
I know the bill that you are speaking of. And it has been heard in the fiscal committee. I don't think it is scheduled for exec yet. Colleen, this is the Senator King bill.
Not 5696.
5696 might be it.
Sorry if I misspoke before.
No, that's okay. It is 5696. I seriously think I'm dyslexic because I am getting my bill numbers reversed all the time.
too many bills. It's not
that
you.
is-
It's too many bills.
It's very true. I appreciate that. It is scheduled for executive session later this week on the 27th. So we will, if you would like us to support that, let us know as it moves forward. I do think it's a very good bill.
That's
What was
definitely
the
on the
correct
list.
number? What was the correct number on that one?
5696.
5696. Okay. You know, and I was just looking at my notes here. There was House Bill 1996, which would divert folks with behavioral health issues out of the criminal justice system. I don't know that there's resources to divert them to, but I was curious about that bill.
It is being heard as we speak in the Finance Committee. And I know so this is tied to Representative Farvar's other bill that had to do with placing caps on each county for the number of people that can be referred to competency evaluation, and then you would have to pay a fine after you hit your cap or went past your cap. So in Representative Farvar's thinking, she's trying a carrot and a stick type of approach to try and drive down the number of competency restorations, which I think, the association is very concerned about this. Like I said, just testifying right now about
The stick is problematic. We have no control over people who have mental health issues.
or the number of people that are referred for competency. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the number
they
of
have-
defense attorneys ask for competency to be heard. So that's another driver as well. Yeah.
And the cities aren't part of that conversation at all. So that gets counted against the county's cap. So yeah, so those
Wow.
two bills are really in discussion. I think as session progresses, we're going to be talking about those more.
Well, let's talk about that some more when it comes up, because I think that stick approach would be definitely one to oppose.
I can't remember the number of the other bill. I can find it though. It's got a 1 and an 8.
That narrows it down.
Maybe not in that order. It's on our list, I know.
Well, we can take a closer look at the list.
Yeah, too many bills, more needed to die.
Yes, they did.
I'm sorry, I'll get it to you. Well, I better jump off for my 10:30. I apologize.
All right, no problem. Thanks a lot. Keep up the good work.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
next
Nice to
week.
see you.
Thank you. Happy Monday.
Bye-bye.
everyone.